How many times have you said, "I'm fine," just to end a conversation or avoid further questions? For most people over 65, it's a phrase used daily, automatic, polite, and comfortable. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Continuing to say, "I'm fine," when you're not could be quietly damaging your health. After 65, health issues become more subtle. Fatigue, low mood, body pains, or changes in sleep are often written off as normal aging. So instead of mentioning them, you say you're fine. But this default response prevents early intervention, masks symptoms, and delays treatment. The result? Small, manageable problems silently grow into serious conditions. In this video, we'll explore why "I'm fine" is more than just a phrase. It's a mental habit that can lead to late diagnoses, reduced quality of life, and avoidable health decline. What follows might challenge how you see your own self-care and could change the way you talk about your health, starting today. At face value, "I'm fine" seems harmless, but it often functions as a shield, used to deflect concern, avoid vulnerability, or protect one's independence. Seniors commonly downplay symptoms to avoid burdening loved ones or being seen as weak. Unfortunately, this tendency can become medically dangerous. Take Helen, a 71-year-old who experienced mild chest discomfort for months. She told her daughter she was fine, chalking it up to indigestion or aging. She skipped doctor visits and stayed quiet, not wanting to make a fuss. When the pain intensified one night, Helen was rushed to the hospital, diagnosed with a heart condition that could have been treated far earlier. Helen's story is not unique. Studies show that older adults frequently delay care for serious conditions because they minimize or normalize symptoms. Common signs, such as shortness of breath, fatigue, or appetite changes, are often ignored. The cost? Increased risk of complications, longer hospital stays, and reduced recovery outcomes. More than just a phrase, "I'm fine" becomes a pattern of self-neglect. It blocks honest communication with caregivers and physicians, who rely on patient input to assess risk. Without clear reporting, even the best doctors can miss critical warning signs. The real danger isn't the illness itself, it's the delay. Most health issues in older age are manageable when caught early. But the longer someone insists they're fine, the smaller the window becomes for non-invasive treatment, dietary changes, or lifestyle adjustments. The takeaway is clear. The words you choose shape the care you receive. By defaulting to "I'm fine," you may be denying yourself the chance for early support, effective intervention, and better health outcomes. For people over 65, health doesn't typically collapse overnight. Instead, it shifts quietly, through subtle, accumulating changes. A slight decrease in energy, occasional dizziness, a few skipped meals, a foggy morning that doesn't go away by noon. These symptoms rarely feel dramatic enough to mention. And so, when asked how they're doing, many seniors respond the same way: "I'm fine." This reflex is more than habit. It's a form of emotional self-protection. After retirement, after raising families and surviving hardship, many older adults view independence as their last badge of control. Admitting something feels wrong can feel like surrender. It may open the door to tests, medications, or suggestions to give up driving, cooking, or living alone. So they don't say anything. But this silence is expensive. Let's take Frank. At 75, Frank started feeling unusually tired in the afternoons. He'd skip his evening walk and nap instead. Then he stopped reading in the evenings, his eyes strained too quickly. Soon, he was forgetting simple things: names, grocery items, appointments. When his daughter asked how he was, Frank shrugged. "I'm fine, just a little tired." Months passed. By the time Frank visited a neurologist, his symptoms had worsened. He was diagnosed with early-stage vascular dementia, something that could have been slowed dramatically if caught earlier. Instead, precious time had passed, simply because he didn't want to make it a big deal. Frank's story is familiar to geriatric doctors. They repeatedly encounter older patients who downplay or completely hide critical symptoms, not because they want to suffer, but because they're afraid of the consequences of speaking up. There's also the fear of being labeled. Once you report a symptom, say mild forgetfulness or balance issues, it often triggers a cascade: tests, screenings, potential diagnoses. Some seniors fear that one complaint could lead to being treated differently, seen as fragile, dependent, or incapable. That fear silences them, even when early reporting could make all the difference. Another layer? Normalization. As people age, they slowly recalibrate what they consider normal. A pain that would have sent them to the doctor at 40 is now considered a daily ache. Fatigue is chalked up to just getting old. Minor depression is accepted as loneliness. But when everything is normal, nothing is addressed. There's a psychological cost too. Saying, "I'm fine," becomes a way to avoid the anxiety of facing bad news. It postpones difficult conversations. It maintains the illusion that everything is okay. But health doesn't care about comfort. It moves forward, either managed or unmanaged. What's worse, the people around you start to believe you. If you always say, "I'm fine," your family, friends, and doctors will stop probing. You'll train them to overlook you, to skip the deeper questions. Your silence teaches others not to ask, and eventually, they stop noticing the changes too. A silent illness becomes invisible and dangerously unaddressed. But here's the critical truth. Medical outcomes in older adults are far more dependent on timing than technology. Catching issues in their early stages, whether diabetes, heart disease, cognitive decline, or nutritional deficiencies, often determines how long you live independently, how well you function, and how much you enjoy your life. And most of those early signs? They come from you, not from a machine, not from a scan, not from a routine blood test. They come from how you describe how you feel. When you say, "I'm fine," you're not just avoiding a moment of vulnerability. You're removing the single most important diagnostic tool available to your doctor, your own words. So, the next time someone asks how you're doing, stop and actually consider the question. Is there something new you've been ignoring? Something different in your body or mood? Mention it, even briefly. You don't have to dramatize it. You just have to say it. Because the words you use could be the very thing that catches a serious condition in time to treat it. Many older adults say, "I'm fine," not because they believe it, but because they believe it's what others need to hear. After a lifetime of caring for family, managing responsibilities, and being the strong one, the idea of becoming a burden can feel unbearable. So instead of voicing discomfort or concern, they swallow it, quietly, consistently, and dangerously. Let's look at Eleanor. At 78, she lived alone, managed her garden, and loved her independence. Her son, a single father of two, called weekly. Each time, he'd ask how she was doing, and Eleanor's answer never changed. "I'm fine, honey. Don't worry about me." What she didn't mention was that she had started feeling dizzy when standing, had fallen once in the hallway, and had begun skipping meals because cooking made her feel nauseous. She kept quiet because she didn't want to cause stress. In her mind, telling her son might lead to hospital visits, missed work, childcare logistics, things she didn't want to trigger. But when Eleanor fainted while carrying groceries and fractured her hip, everything she hoped to avoid happened anyway, only worse and under crisis. Her son had to leave work suddenly. Recovery was longer and more expensive than it would have been had she been evaluated earlier. Eleanor blamed herself. But the real cause wasn't her, it was a culture of silence wrapped in love. Eleanor's case highlights something critical. Seniors often prioritize their loved one's peace of mind over their own well-being. But in doing so, they increase the likelihood of future emergencies, situations that cause even greater disruption, cost, and emotional strain for everyone involved. There's also a generational mindset at play. Many people over 65 grew up in environments where stoicism was admired and vulnerability was discouraged. Health issues were often kept private, and asking for help could be seen as weakness. That mindset persists into later life, turning "I'm fine" into a form of quiet endurance. But endurance doesn't equal strength. In fact, it often leads to collapse. Here's a striking example. A study published in the Journal of Aging and Health found that older adults who minimized or avoided discussing symptoms delayed care by an average of 6 months, enough time for otherwise treatable conditions to progress significantly. And in most of those cases, the reason for the delay wasn't access, it was reluctance to cause worry. Ironically, trying to protect others from short-term concern can result in long-term hardship for everyone. The very people seniors try to shield children, spouses, caregivers, are the ones who suffer most when minor issues become emergencies. There's also a practical problem. Doctors often rely on the accounts of family members to help spot changes. If a parent or spouse insists they're fine, even when something seems off, loved ones may feel conflicted about speaking up. They don't want to be pushy or disrespectful, so they step back, and a dangerous silence grows. Here's what often happens in this cycle. A symptom begins, subtle, manageable, often easy to treat. The person stays quiet, not wanting to worry anyone. Loved ones believe them, or at least stop asking. The condition worsens, slowly, silently. A crisis erupts, an ER visit, hospitalization, or major loss of function. Everyone feels blindsided and wonders why no one saw it coming. But it was coming. The signs were there. They were just buried under, "I'm fine." This is not about blame. It's about awareness. Saying how you really feel isn't a burden. It's a signal. It allows the people who care about you to actually care for you. It helps doctors make better decisions. It gives your family the opportunity to plan, adjust, and support you before things reach a breaking point. Let's be clear. You don't have to share every small ache or worry. But when something is new, persistent, or unusual, mention it. Not just for your own sake, but for the people you think you're protecting. They would rather deal with a conversation than a catastrophe. They'd rather know you're tired than find out you've fallen. They'd rather adjust now than scramble later. And most importantly, they care more about you than about hearing that you're fine. By choosing honesty over habit, you shift from being polite to being wise. You turn a dangerous reflex into a powerful act of self-preservation and, ironically, into a real form of care for those around you. Not every health crisis after 65 is physical. In fact, some of the most dangerous ones begin quietly, internally, and invisibly, inside the mind. And once again, the phrase, "I'm fine," plays a central role in hiding what's really going on. Let's be clear, aging often brings emotional changes. Retirement, the loss of a partner, physical limitations, or distance from family can all lead to feelings of sadness, disconnection, or purposelessness. But these feelings rarely get discussed. Instead, they're buried beneath familiar words. "I'm fine." It's a script, and it hides too much. Consider Harold. At 80, he had outlived his wife and most of his close friends. His children visited monthly, and he had food delivered twice a week. When asked how he was doing, Harold would always smile and say, "Can't complain." On the surface, everything seemed manageable. But in reality, Harold had stopped leaving the house. He watched TV for hours, but couldn't recall what he'd seen. He wasn't sleeping well, had no appetite, and didn't feel like calling anyone. Harold wasn't fine, he was depressed. And like millions of older adults, he didn't recognize it as such. To him, this was just what getting old looked like. Less energy, less excitement, more time alone. He didn't want to seem ungrateful or needy, so he stayed quiet. By the time Harold's daughter noticed something was off, during a visit when he couldn't remember where he'd put his medication, the decline had already become serious. A psychiatric evaluation later confirmed moderate depression and early cognitive impairment. With treatment, some symptoms improved, but others, particularly memory issues, had already advanced. Mental health decline in older adults is often invisible. It rarely shows up in blood work or physical exams. Doctors rely heavily on self-reporting, on what patients say about their mood, sleep, appetite, and energy. But if every response is, "I'm fine," there's no data to work with. And this isn't rare. According to the CDC, nearly 1 in 4 adults over 65 experience symptoms of depression, but most go undiagnosed and untreated. Why? Because they don't mention the changes. They say they're fine. And because they're not actively crying or acting out, no one presses further. There's also stigma. Many older adults grew up in a time when depression was considered weakness. Seeing a therapist was unthinkable. Talking about mental health was taboo. That cultural conditioning hasn't disappeared. It just got buried under polite conversation. But here's the reality. Depression is not a character flaw. It's a treatable medical condition. Left untreated, it increases the risk of stroke, heart disease, dementia, and even death by suicide, rates of which are highest among older men. And yet, all of this is preventable when caught early. Even more subtle is cognitive decline. Conditions like Alzheimer's or vascular dementia begin gradually, with minor forgetfulness, mood changes, or disorientation. These early signs are easy to dismiss, especially if the person is still able to carry on conversation and live independently. They may say, "I'm just tired lately," or more often, "I'm fine." But early intervention matters. When caught in the early stages, cognitive decline can often be slowed with therapy, medication, lifestyle changes, and social engagement. The window to act narrows over time, and the difference between a person who catches it early and one who waits can be years of independent living. So how do you move beyond "I'm fine"? You don't have to spill everything at once. Instead, learn to share one detail that's new or different. Instead of "I'm fine," try, "I've been feeling a little more tired than usual. My appetite hasn't been great lately. I've had a few nights where I didn't sleep well. I keep forgetting where I put things, and it's starting to bother me. I've been feeling a little off, just not myself." These aren't complaints. They're clues. Clues that help your doctor, your family, or even yourself recognize that something might need attention. One sentence can open the door to help that could change everything. It also gives others permission to share. When you model honesty, the people around you stop walking on eggshells. They feel safer asking deeper questions, offering help, or even admitting their own concerns. Vulnerability creates connection, and connection protects mental health. Harold eventually joined a senior walking group. It wasn't easy. He resisted at first. But once there, he rediscovered a sense of purpose, made a few new friends, and felt less isolated. His daughter told him, "I wish you'd told me how bad it had gotten." His reply? "I didn't want to make it real." But silence doesn't make things less real. It just delays support. If you're over 65, one of the most powerful things you can do for your brain and your emotional health is to start saying what's actually true. Even if it's small, even if it feels uncomfortable. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest. One overlooked consequence of saying "I'm fine" too often is that eventually, people start to believe you, including your doctor. Doctors rely heavily on patient input, especially in older adults. Blood tests and scans reveal a lot, but they don't show fatigue, dizziness, low mood, or subtle changes in appetite or energy. Those details come from conversation. And if every visit starts with "I'm fine," it sets a tone. Over time, physicians may begin to assume there's nothing urgent to explore. They might skip deeper questioning, reduce screening frequency, or focus only on known, past conditions. Not because they're careless, but because your words teach them what to expect. Take Rosa, 79. She had a long-standing relationship with her doctor and always appeared upbeat during checkups. She was managing her hypertension, took medications regularly, and never complained. But she was also experiencing short-term memory issues and frequent disorientation at home. She didn't mention it. She didn't want to be a problem. By the time Rosa's daughter insisted on a neuro exam, signs of early-stage dementia were clearly present. Her doctor later admitted, "She always told me she was fine. I never had reason to dig deeper." That's not neglect. It's a system responding to signals, your signals. Medical appointments are often brief. If nothing is flagged early in the conversation, providers move quickly. When a patient repeatedly says they're fine, it reduces urgency. It sets a precedent. No need to probe here. But the reality is, some of the most serious conditions in older age, depression, cognitive decline, kidney issues, malnutrition, start without strong external signs. The danger here is cumulative. Each missed detail builds into a larger blind spot. And by the time symptoms become visible, the opportunity for early, easier intervention may be gone. You don't need to exaggerate, but you do need to be clear. Mention the change. Report the pattern. Say what's different, even if it seems minor. That alone can shift a routine visit into a life-saving one. Remember, doctors can only act on the information they have. If you keep telling them nothing's wrong, they'll start treating you that way. By now, You've seen the pattern. Behind the simple phrase, "I'm fine," often lies pain, fatigue, confusion, fear, or symptoms of something far more serious. And while the words may sound polite, safe, or even strong, they can quietly delay the care that keeps you healthy and independent. You've heard how Helen ignored heart symptoms, how Frank normalized early dementia, how Eleanor stayed silent to protect her son, how Harold missed the signs of depression, and how Rosa taught her doctor not to look closer. Each story shared a single thread, silence disguised as reassurance. Here's what matters now. You have a choice. Every time someone asks how you are, you can pause and tell the truth. Not every detail, just something real, something new, something useful. Because when you stop saying, "I'm fine," automatically, you open the door to earlier care, better support, and longer-lasting health. You protect your future by being honest in the present. So next time someone asks how you're doing, skip the script. Say what matters. And if you notice something unusual, say that, too. It could be the sentence that changes everything. Have you ever said, "I'm fine," when you weren't, and regretted it later? Share your story in the comments. Someone else might recognize themselves in your words. If this message resonated with you, send it to a friend, and subscribe for more no-nonsense insights on staying sharp, strong, and self-aware after 65. Thanks for watching. And this time, really ask yourself, are you fine?